Ankur.
Thank you, Shashi. Looking forward to this.
I'll quickly run through the introduction. Welcome to the third Metabolic Health Conference being organized from India by Shashikant Iyengar and Anup Singh. I'm Ira Sahai, the Chief Operating Officer of D-Life Healthcare Private Limited, a D-Life certified metabolic health coach and the lead host of the third Metabolic Health Conference organized by India, as I said. A bit of intro on D-Life. It is India's first and the only award-winning low-carb platform and the world's single biggest low-carb platform, founded in 2014 by Anup Singh, a silver medalist from India's very prestigious IIT Roorkee. Anup is also the recipient of the Icons of India Award. Anup pioneered the low-carb movement in India in 2012 with his path-breaking protocol of 100 gram carbs per day max that made not only lchf but also type 2 diabetes possible even for Indian vegetarians. With me today, I have my friend, colleague, and teammate, Vineet, who is a certified metabolic health coach from D-Life and a hybrid athlete who lifts heavy, runs sprints, and trains Ironman athletes using a low-carb approach. He also introduced tallow balm officially to India, so he can be called the OG of tallow. Vineet, welcome. And here is Ankur, our very, very special guest. I had been on his podcast and now, we've called him. What a pleasure to see you, Ankur, as always. Ankur is trained in emergency medicine from the George Washington University. He's currently a principal consultant and faculty of emergency medicine at a super specialty hospital in New Delhi. He has a keen interest in trauma, airways, academic EM, resecution, and POCUS. And he coined the term satisfied, SAT, and all smaller case. Satisfied Airway. He has published papers and delivered talks nationally and internationally. He is also the creator founder of the very famous the Desi EM project, of which I was also a guest on. India's first and only emergency medicine podcast heard in more than 70 countries. He's a self-taught nutritionist who's trying to create awareness about species specific carnivore lifestyle and root causes of chronic non-communicable diseases. Welcome, Ankur. And yes, so let's quickly begin, asking you questions so that we can get more from you. I think we are running a bit late, a couple of minutes late. So Vineet, why don't you start
Thank you, Ira, for the
grilling?
introduction and welcome, Dr. Ankur.
Thank you guys, man. It's an absolute pleasure. And thank you
It's so good to be here with you, two biggest supporter of the carnivore diet in India.
And by the way, all three of us are carnivores, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good to
yeah, it's a double treat. Yes, Vineet.
So I'll start the session, Dr. Ankur. So I want to ask you, what sparked your interest in the low carb and carnivore diet? Like, did it shock you to know, like, as a doctor, that this diet can reverse almost all the metabolic syndromes better than allopathic medicines?
So, as a disclaimer, I'll let you know, as a doctor, I was never trained in nutrition, right? So I thought I was doing the right thing for my patients. 3 years back, I just got a routine blood test I had done, and I saw my triglycerides had hit 600, and I knew something was not right. I've always been a meat eater. I've always loved my meats, but I've always loved my carbs also, like all the other Indians. But then I realized that nutrition is something that I've not been taught in. I knew triglycerides are high because of the amount of carbs I eat. So naturally, I just cut off the carbs at that time, especially the processed sugars and the junk. I was still having a little bit of rice, but I cut out all the breads and stuff, the potatoes and everything else that has carbs in it. And then I just started reading up, the first book I read was Metabolic by Dr. Robert Lustig. And, it just took me down the rabbit hole of metabolic health, which not many doctors actually know about. And then I started watching more on social media. I saw Dr. Sean Baker and on Joe Rogan, and and then I came across Anthony Chaffee and Paul Saladino when he was still a carnivore. But what I figured was in about 6 or 7 months, once I cut off the carbs, my triglycerides came down. They came down to almost 100 in like 6 months. Obviously, I had to lose weight, so that happened 23 kilos. And then over the years, I've met a lot of people. I've read a lot of books, a lot of journal articles, came across D-Life, and they've been doing some amazing work on low carb, with Anup and Shashi and Ira and all of you guys, going through the low carb community and, training more people and treating so many patients. with low carb. So, I mean, and it wasn't that I followed anybody blindly. Whatever they were saying, I went through research articles. Like you already mentioned, here I've published papers, so I know how to go through articles. I know how to read papers and make my own inferences. And it wasn't just RCTs that I was going through, something that a lot of people love to quote. But I mean, just basic biochemistry, opening my textbooks again, and figuring it out. So yeah, that was basically how I entered into low carb or maybe no carbs. But yeah,
I
it's been a
think
learning
Ankur
process.
has already pretty much talked about the influences that he has had, and which is what I was going to ask him, next. But coming on to the next question, Ankur, you being an emergency emergency doctor, or whatever your term is, what do you think? Do you think the role of low carb or the carnivore diet plays in is important in improving once a patient is admitted in the emergency? I was told by a doctor that diet is one thing and emergency medicine is quite another. It doesn't work like that. And inevitably, whenever we write that, there'll be somebody or the other who challenges that kind of equation. But I know that it all begins from there. So can you explain that a bit to us?
Yeah, I haven't been challenged yet, but I do get to speak to my patients. And emergency medicine and low carb or nutrition absolutely goes hand in hand. I'll tell you, we are one specialty that is pro community. We're the only ones that actually go into the community. Our work starts, in the pre-hospital areas, which is inside the community, right? So, I mean, we have an emergency, our ambulances goes, picks up patients, gets them to us. So we are more involved with the community. And once I went in down the metabolic health pathway, I realized how all my patients, actually 90% of my patients, have emergencies related to metabolic disorders, right? Be it heart attacks, strokes, diabetic ketoacidosis, hypoglycemias, even infections, asthma exacerbations, Alzheimer's, cancers, complications of cancers, complications of the treatment of these disorders. So all of these are coming in, and it just goes down to the root cause of what the nutrition's been. And I've been quite vocal about what the nutrition's been for all of these patients that I'm seeing in India, or at least in New Delhi. So it definitely goes hand in hand. And I mean, since we're doing so many researchers in my department, we're talking to all the patients and their attendants, and they all believe that they're having a very healthy diet, being vegetarian, uh, and but they do not understand the importance of essential amino acids and good sources of proteins or fats, and obviously misled over the years through all the myths and propaganda that we have also been taught as doctors a little bit. And that's what we also propagate. I mean, we feel that the food plate that is actually prescribed by the ICMR is supposed to be good for everybody, and but what people don't realize is India usually eats that. I mean, 90% of the people actually eat cereals and grains and legumes and lentils and fruits and vegetables and lesser amounts of red meat and eggs. So I think we as a specialty have a really important role to play, to plant a seed in the patients, to for them to understand what nutrient dense foods are all about, what essential nutrients are all about, and then we can take it forward. Just giving an example, recently one of my friends' mom was admitted, and she's had cancer before, she's been a diabetic for many years, she was a vegetarian, although she used to have a lot of processed foods also. Finally got admitted into my hospital after being treated somewhere else for about 2 months, was not being able to be diagnosed and having a lot of shortness of breath, and she had infective endocarditis, and she needed a valve replacement and everything. But till the time she was in my hospital for about almost 2 weeks, she didn't receive any carbohydrates. That was a strict order from my side. She was given only chicken soup, eggs, and fish. And by the time I met her when she was about to be discharged, she said that she's feeling so much better, and she's never actually felt better eating this kind of food, and that she's getting used to this. And the whole family actually understood how important uh, this kind of nutrition was. So and my whole team, we're all talking to patients, we're all asking them what they're eating, we're actually getting the chance to speak to them. A lot of people think that we do not get the chance. You need to understand, we get three priorities of patients. One is absolutely urgent, emergent, second, and then you have a second priority which is a little more urgent, and then you have the non-urgent cases, and we get to speak to all of them.
Yeah, and that brings me to a very pertinent work that Ankur is currently doing. He's carrying out a research. I think it's the databases of 7,000 patients. Ankur, would you want to tell about that to our audiences?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. I mean, this one's about relation of the diet preferences with metabolic and non-communicable diseases that patients are coming in with. So, the inclusion criteria is anybody who's coming in with a diagnosed diabetes, hypertension, asthma, Alzheimer's, cancers, heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, or, anybody who does not have a comorbid condition but has come into my department with a heart attack for the first time also. All of these are included, and we have a 30 question questionnaire, and it's not about food frequency, but it's about diet preferences like vegetarian, vegan, carnivore, omnivore, pescatarian, and we're asking everything. How do you eat your meats with carbs or not, and alcohol, smoking, everything, exercise, any other addictions. And till now we've collected about 7,000 patients, and out of 7,000 patients, 50% are diabetic, and this is about 28% of the total footfall that we get in our emergency department. So, and the ones who've entered the survey. So 28% of the people who've entered this, who've come to my emergency department are diagnosed with diabetes, who've entered the survey. There are others who are diabetic, but, they did not want to get into the survey. The others who were brought dead on arrival, we had to exclude them. And then there are others who are probably pre-diabetic and diabetic, but they've not been diagnosed yet. So you can imagine easily more than 30% of the population coming into just my emergency department
Correct.
have diabetes, right? Hypertension is even more. It's even more. 65% of these patients are pure vegetarians. 85% of them, no alcohol. 75%, no smoking. You've got about maybe 60-65%, I might be wrong, I don't remember the whole data right now, who do not eat processed foods or have Nova group of foods, the group 1. You have 4 groups. So they have group 1, which is mostly unprocessed foods. There will be a little bit of bias over there because it's difficult to explain to all the patients what all the 4 groups mean. But it's quite obvious the matrix is out there, and we're seeing what's happening to all of them. And it's not just that. I mean, there are people in my own department who've undergone tests, and they have metabolic syndrome, and we keep doing experiments. So this is not this is just one study we're doing. We're doing another one with non-alcoholic fatty liver that's coming in. We're doing with young adults not diagnosed with diabetes but coming in with hyperglycemia, and then we're diagnosing them with diabetes. We're doing sarcopenia and their dietary preferences in the elderly age groups that are coming in above 65 years, how frail they are. So yeah, I mean, this batch of my residents, I've called them the metabolic emergency medicine batch. So all of their research and thesis is, diet, nutrition, and emergency medicine conditions. So yeah, we're seeing some amazing.
1 year down the line, Ankur, it will be very interesting to look at the data and the correlations, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's all going to be correlation, right? You use the right word. I'm not saying causation. It's going to be a very strong correlation. But yeah, I mean, unless we get the impossible RCTs done, nobody can prove causation. But yeah, at the back of our minds, we all know what's causing all of this.
Yeah, great work you're doing. Yes, Vineet,
it must be very hard to find any healthy, individual coming in an emergency, like the data you are showing. So as we all know that this umbilical cord between insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome is too strong to deny now. Yeah. So can you explain how insulin resistance contributes to emergency medical situations?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite obvious, right? I mean, you're insulin resistant, so you're diabetic, and once you have spikes in insulins, it activates the RAS system. It tells the kidneys to, retain more sodium, which shoots up your blood pressure. So you have blood pressure spikes also when you have insulin spikes, injures the arteries, which have more turbulent blood flow in them, like the coronary arteries, your carotid and your aorta, causes more injuries, causes more scar tissue over there, activates your immune response. Your cholesterol also goes over there, LDL goes over there to put a balm, and and then every time you have carbs, and you get more insulin resistant. This just keeps happening on. So you end up with probably a heart attack, or if your carotid artery gets blocked, you can get strokes, or a thrombus can fly down up to your brain, and that can also cause strokes. So we get a lot of strokes, we get a lot of heart attacks. I mean, I've been sharing it on my social media how we're getting a lot of patients who've apparently had no comorbid conditions, who have the normal cholesterol levels that we talk about, and yet they're having heart attacks. But the TG to HDL ratios are high, right? So that also shows that they have metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance. And the most important part, which I feel that everybody's missing out in the medical field, is everybody is B12 deficient. All of them have B12s in
Rampant,
double digits.
rampant.
People need to
Yes.
know that B12 is the one that controls your homocysteine levels. Yeah, it breaks it down. And homocysteine is something that if it goes up, it causes thromboembolic events, and it can clot your blood. In layman terms, it can clot your blood anywhere in the body, especially in the highly turbulent areas. So you can have thromboembolic disorders, you can have cardiovascular disorders like heart attacks and strokes and pulmonary embolisms, even DVTs, sometimes. So I feel that is what is actually one of the leading causes right now for heart disease, not cholesterol.
Yeah, so Ankur, you are in the emergency medicine, and there's direct, as you said, there's a correlation between insulin resistance, going back right to the root, and what's happening now. In between this emergency situation, how do you kind of, endorse or talk about or counsel about the diet? Because that's a very, very difficult situation to handle, actually.
Yeah.
And I would say, that's not maybe the right, technically the right time also to talk about diet, because, people are in dire circumstances. So how do you just, put
Yeah.
that thing in?
So, like I said, we get three priority of patients, right? So it's easier to speak to the priority 2 and 3 patients because they don't have to be rushed, to probably the cath lab or to the OT or to the ICUs. But we have our emergency ICUs also, and we have some cases. But it's a perception that it's difficult to talk to patients. They want to be spoken to. What we've seen is when I go and ask them, "What do you eat?" and this is what they say, and then when I say, "Why don't you eat your meats and eggs?" they first it's a shock value for them. Like, you're a doctor and you're talking about eating meats and eggs. I mean, we've always been told not to eat meats and eggs, and that piques their interest also. And if they really want to, they actually do listen to us. They start talking about it. Yeah, I mean, the patients who are shifted out to the cath lab, we always tell them, you can come back and speak to us. And since we're doing the research, we ask them all of those questions, so they know that these guys are doing something. These guys are probably going against what the usual paradigm is all about. But it's not difficult to speak to them. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes, and we understand who's interested, right? I mean, I've had patients tell me, I'd rather die than eat meat, the ones who have religious reasons. So I don't bother wasting their time and my time discussing this. We've got a huge population, right? So there are a lot of people who are interested. There'll be lots who will not be interested at all. They want to live the life they've lived, the way that they've been living with medications and insulin and all of that, and eat everything that they want to. That's everybody's choice. What I feel is I try to give out the education and awareness, and then it's their choice, right? I mean, we know that we've all been given the wrong choices, the wrong education, the wrong kind of awareness regarding nutrition and food. I think it's time to change that. And you guys are doing an absolutely amazing work, doing the same in your own capacities. So it's not difficult to speak to them.
Yeah, I would just extend one point, Vineet, before we move on and you take on the next question. You are definitely doing a very critical work, Ankur. You're changing the perception, in the conventional medical scenario. How is your office space or your co-workers looking, and other doctors looking at your work, and is there any resistance to that?
No, they're not going to resist me, first of all. Second, practice what we preach, right? So they've seen the change in me. They've seen how much fitter I've become. So they know something's right. And when I speak regarding nutrition, they also understand that they don't know anything about nutrition, right? Because they've not been taught. It's not their fault. I mean, they've not been taught, and then they can see that I'm talking sense. And if I just ask a question, a basically simple question to probably a cardiologist or a neurologist, that this guy's cholesterol levels are absolutely normal. Why do you want to start him on statins? I know why they want to start him on statins, because the guidelines say so, right? And when we have these questions, and there's this respectable conversation that happens, they don't want to resist. But they also have issues in not starting medications because, since it's in the guidelines, they don't start the patient on statins. Anybody can sue them. So it's not their fault. It's like the guidelines need to change. And if we speak sense, and if we back it with evidence, and I don't have to show evidences of the world to them. I can show them evidence of our own department, of our own patients that are coming in, and we're doing prospective and retrospective studies. And I've picked up stroke cases from since 2019. We're on 2020 right now in collecting data. You won't believe it. Out of about 200 strokes, 79 patients had lipid profiles done. They were all started on statins because that's what the guidelines say. But 79% only had 79 patients had lipid profiles done, and just 2 of them had high cholesterol levels. The rest had normal cholesterol levels out of 79. And this is only from 2019 to 2020. So first of all, the guidelines, I've been through all the guidelines because we all read. None of the guidelines tell us to check the lipid profiles of the patients. You want us to start cholesterol lowering drugs, but you don't want us to check if they're high or not. That just shows how big the influence of the pharma industry is on the guidelines, right? You don't want us to check the cholesterol levels, but you want us to start those medications empirically. That's not right. Fine, you want to start statins. At least prove that the patient has high cholesterol. Not that he needs statins for that, but then if you want to start a medication to lower something, you want to first document the fact that he had high values of that, right? You don't want to start somebody on insulin who has sugar levels of 70 or 80, right? You want to first document that the patient has a sugar level of 200, 230 before you start on metformin or insulin or whatever drugs you want. The same should be for this. So, when we have these kind of conversations with other doctors, there is not much resistance. The head of my department, he became carnivore. He lost weight. He, got over his hypertension. He got over his pre-diabetes. He's off all medications. So now I have another partner, right? So, I mean, if 2 leaders of the same department are talking about all of this, and we're talking sense, not going to get resistance.
And it helps to have data, Ankur. It helps to have data. It helps to walk the talk. It helps to have more people, in the game. And you're proving that by doing it yourself and, inspiring people around you to do it. So, I think you are in a better position, than other doctors may be. Yes, Vineet.
So Ankur, tell me how, what ways we can emergency physicians, like you integrate, into this nutritional awareness. So, given the time constraints and acute nature of your work,
yeah, I mean, once I went carnivore, I think I've got enough time to do a lot of things. I think it's just there. It just happens. There's something where I think my time management has become much, much better. It's because I'm more mentally aware, more alert. I've got more space. So, I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing my own social media, I'm doing a lot of interviews, I do my workouts, I do consults, I do 9 to 5 every day. I drive to work at 7:30 in the morning. I come back by like 7:38, and I still have time to all of this and give time to my family, play with my son, everything. So it's possible. A lot of people actually have a negative mindset, and I don't blame them. That's how we've been conditioned, I think. And we forget, like, if a child comes and tells us that Papa, ye mere se nahi ho payega, I won't be able to do this. We always tell them to first try it out and then decide if he or she can do it or not. Right? So I have a lot of people, even doctors come and tell me, I can't have meat all the time. How do you know that? You never tried it. Try it, at least. I had somebody tell me, how do you eat meat 3 times a day? I'm like, the same way you eat vegetables 3 times a day.
Yeah, I think we've all gone through the same questions. I mean, even till now, people are shocked.
Exactly.
This low carb and carnivore just makes you,
No, low carb is still
Superman.
fine. Vineet, low carb is still fine. You, Ankur,
Carnivore
and I
makes
know
you Superman.
what it is to be carnivore, and everywhere that you go, new people, you always get asked, sirf meat khate. Even your bhaji wali will ask you. We have that shock value, for everybody.
Yeah, and people need to understand that low carb and carnivore is not bulletproof. You
Correct.
might get infections, but you'll recover like super fast. I had a fever for 5 hours. That's it. I didn't take any medication and I was absolutely fine. My son had a fever for 1 day. When he used to actually suffer from virals and all, it used to go on for like 7 to 8 days and all of that. So last week he had a fever. It was just for 1 day. And he was absolutely fine. I've never seen him recover so fast, right?
Your body recovers very fast.
But the severity is going to be really low. That's a big difference.
So
Yeah.
I'll just carry this question forward. Ankur, how do you suggest very practically the doctor should integrate nutrition? Is there something they can do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, they can go on to D-Life, right? You guys are doing such a great job. You've got so many doctors on your panel who've actually come and trained under you, and you've got such I think you've got the maximum CPD points in the world. And Shashi, Anup, Ira, Vineet, all of you guys are doing an amazing job. So if doctors want to, they can definitely join your course. There might be other courses I think out there, but
No, there is nothing. Actually, there is nothing. And very,
I'm sure.
heartening thing that happened yesterday was that Dr. Nadir Ali was, in the conference. And he started with the statement, if you want to do, learn low carb, go to D-Life, go to D-Life.
Yeah,
And, we tweeted about it, but it just validates our stand, in India. And today we had somebody from, of the face of the government of India where we are certified from. So, of course, 48 doctors we are training, and we'd like more doctors to join us so that we are together in this movement. Yes, Vinith, you want
absolutely.
to take the next question?
So, Ankur, what do you think about dietary interventions like low carb and carnivore diet? We are, what role can play in preventing hospital readmissions for patients with metabolic disorders? Like
Yeah,
if they fix their
readmission
diet
to
and
yeah, readmission comes later. It's first about admission. So I made this my slogan that, help me save your lives by not coming into the emergency department. You don't need me. Why should you need me, to save your life? It should only be for traumas. You can save yourself from heart attacks. You can save yourself from strokes. You can save yourself from Alzheimer's, cancers, diabetic ketoacidosis, again, hypoglycemia, severe infections, asthma exacerbations, autoimmune disorders. You can save yourself by eating the right way, eating nutrient dense foods, eggs and meats, and cutting
yeah.
off all unnecessary carbs. So if you get metabolically fit, you won't need to come into the MNC department. Forget MNC department. You won't even need to go to the doctor, for an OPD visit. You just won't need that. Why do you want to visit hospitals? Why do you want to be on medications? You don't need it. It's
Sorry,
quite
cutting
simple.
you here. Like 6 years back, I used to go to the Max only at Saket, where you are practicing for IBS, for my migraine, and it's
Yeah.
been 6, 7 years now. Never, never ever.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So I mean, it can easily be done. I mean, and unfortunately, not many doctors know that. That's the thing. So I mean, dietary interventions should be the first step. I mean, we've done that for our friends, families. All of us have, taken patients off medications, right? I did this at a conference last year where I actually asked how many of the doctors in the panel and in the audience had actually had reduced their OPD footfall because their patients were off medications, cured from their diseases, and did not need to come back to them. I was the only one who raised their hands, right? So we're not doing that. So we're managing diseases, right? We're helping them live their life on medications, and then they get complications and they come back, and then we put them on more medications and they have some complications, they come back. It's like especially diabetes and insulin resistance, right? It's supposed to be progressive, and we let it progress, right? We start them on metformin, then we start at glimepiride, and then we put them on insulin, and then increase the doses, and then put them on another insulin, and then we realize, oh, they're going to diabetic nephropathy. All right, now you've got CKD stage 1, 2, 3. All right, we put you on more medications. Okay, now you've reached CKD 5. Fair enough. This is the progress of diabetes. Now we're going to get a fistula made for you. Now we're going to start dialyzing for you. It's going to be hard for you. Don't worry, we're there, we'll take care of it, we'll give you dialysis appointments, everything's going to happen. Yeah, we've been taught in that same way, and then they miss the dialysis one day and their potassium shoots up, and then they come back to the emergency with really high potassiums, hardly able to breathe, their heart rate's gone down, and when we clear the potassium, we get them dialyzed. They may survive, they may not survive, and everybody's like, all right, everybody tried the best, but we did not. If we would have just given them nutrient dense foods and removed carbs, a lot of people have actually reversed their kidney disorders. Ira is an example over here. So, it can happen, and it should happen. That is what we need to change.
Yeah, Ankur, I think we should just sum up a lot of things that people may be wanting to hear from you. Can you bust some, myths about, meat animals. Primarily, why did you choose to be a carnivore? That in short, and why should people choose carnivore if they can or are willing to over a vegetarian diet?
So, like I mentioned, I was always a meat eater. From the age of 2, I've heard stories of myself asking my family for chicken and meat and fish and all of that. So, I have always enjoyed my meats.
You're a
Uh,
true Gaista, by the way.
oh, yeah.
I can vouch for that.
So people need to know that there are essential nutrients, non-essential nutrients, right? You need essential amino acids. So everybody talks about just protein as a macro, and they just zoom out and talk about protein. You need to zoom in and know non-essential and essential amino acids. You need your 8 essential amino acids. Where do you get those essential amino acids from? You get them from animal products, from meats. They're bioavailable and biodigestible. So our stomach acid is acidic. Stomach has acidic pH, which helps in breaking down the meats. So you need essential amino acids, you need essential fatty acids, you need essential vitamins and minerals. Carbs is not essential because our body makes glucose from glucogenic amino acids, and then again those are essential amino acids. Again, comes back to animal foods, right? You need DHA and EPA for your brains. You get them from seafood, you get them from egg yolks, red meat. You need vitamin A in the form of retinol, which is readily available. That happens from meats. You need vitamin D. Again, sunlight is one thing, but then even from food, red meats, yolks. You need vitamin K2, which is a readily form, again, meats. B12, I've already told you, India is deficient in B12, right? You can only get that from animal products. Even vitamin C is available in chicken liver, other organ meats. So we get that. And our requirement for vitamin C is anyways lower than anybody who eats a carbohydrate diet, because the GLUT transporters have competitive inhibition between the two, and glucose always wins. So they need higher doses of vitamin C. We don't need it. So all of these are available in animal products, right? And we also need to eliminate anti-nutrients. Where do we get anti-nutrients from? From the vegetables, right? From the plants, from the cereals and grains. They can't run away. They have their own defense chemicals. You have oxalic acids and oxalates, lectins, phytates, trypsin inhibitors, phytoestrogens. All of these are there. Phytates block uptake of zinc for us. Lectins block protein to be again taken up from some of the dals and the lentils we talk about, but they're more of carbohydrates than the proteins. So, and I'm seeing everybody falling sick on a diabetogenic diet, which is
Right.
the plate prescribed by the ICMR. And it's not that a lot of people actually feel India has become diabetic after westernization and industrialization. It's not. Ira also knows this. We've had documented diabetes from thousands of years,
Yes.
and it's been out there. So it's not that.
Sinister plan to have, everything pushed under and shoved under the carpet, and just one I would say diet has become very political, because, it's everything else but science is there. So, Ankur, I
But
would, crunch a few things, our audiences would love it. Just say yes, no, and maybe one line answers. Eggs raise cholesterol dangerously.
No ways.
So, how many can they eat?
As many as you want, as many as you can.
Can they
but,
give the
but
yolk to the neighbors?
The yolk is where the nutrition is. It's got complete vitamin and mineral profile, and your saturated fatty acids there.
But if
yeah.
I have high cholesterol, should I be eating yolks? My doctor told me
You
not to
want
eat.
yourself to have high cholesterol. Again, LDL's been removed from the AHA's calculators, So yeah, mine is around 450, and I'm happy about that.
Throw some of the egg whites and eat all the yolks.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
correct.
But Ankur,
it's funny because a lot of people, when I ask them when we go out for conferences and they're having eggs, I'm like, so what are you taking? Oh, I'm having 3 egg whites and two whole eggs. I'm like, it doesn't
Egg
even.
whites is a complete elite club. We'll come back to
but
that later. That has some, it's a genre.
but
Red
Ankur,
meat.
there are many critics who argue that high protein or high fat diet could have negative long term effects.
Yeah,
Like, how do you
Like what?
respond to these
Like what?
concerns?
My first question to them
Like,
is like what? Always. They're like, it'll affect your kidneys. I'm like, I can see diabetes and hypertension affecting the kidneys. And once your kidneys are damaged, yes, you're going to leak out protein here. It's not going to happen the other way around. And your body, 3/4 of your body structure is made of proteins and amino acids. All the processes, every enzyme in our body is made of amino acids. I open my biochemistry books and show it to them again. This is what was written in our books with that we read in the first year. So, that's not going to happen.
Okay, red meat is very bad for me. I mean, shouldn't be eating it daily, and it may rot in my colon.
A colon is shrunk, once we've evolved. A colon is where the vegetables ferment, not meats. Meat so it gets digested in the stomach, in the small intestine. It doesn't even reach the colon. So, yeah, that's again a myth.
How am I going to poop without fiber on carnivore?
How do babies poop?
Yeah, everybody. How
Yeah.
do I do
No, but
that?
how do babies poop? They don't get any fiber from their mother, right? They get only fats and proteins in the mother's milk. That's what you need.
And
If
they
you
do
want
it
a life
7,
to
8,
live,
10
have
times
fats.
a day.
Even when we give suppositories to the babies, it's fat, like glycerol, right? It's not fiber. That's absolutely and the thing is, people forget we are born with peristalsis. It is our normal physiological process. When our body wants to poop, it will. We don't need external sources to make our intestines move. It's going to happen. It's a normal. It's like a heart beating, right? It's normal. We're born with our heart beating and our brain working the same way. We have our intestines and peristalsis. That is absolutely natural, and it's going to happen whenever the body wants it to happen. We don't have to force it.
Should we eat fat and fatty liver?
Yeah, of course. That fatty liver is because of the carbs.
Are you sure?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Vineet, anything else that you would want to ask Ankur? We are having such a fun session, and Ankur, as promised, we wanted you to feature in the MHC first and then the D Life, podcast. And we will have you again, on the D Life podcast. But Vineet, would you want to ask
I
any?
want to ask one last question. Like, what changes would you like to see in hospital
Yes.
nutrition policies,
Very-
particularly in emergency care settings?
Yeah. So there's something that we're leading in. We've banned sugars in my department first. Anybody who orders coffee from any of the baristas in the hospital, they know they can't carry the coffee with sugars in my department. The food and beverage department is banned from giving any fruit juices or fizzy drinks to my patients who are there in the emergency department. And that again strikes a conversation for us, because if they want something, the FNB doesn't go talk to Dr. Ankur. He's not allowed it. So then I have a conversation, and and just helps to bridge some gaps. So
Yeah,
these
please get Shashi and Anup also on the screen so we can keep chatting. Yes, we
So
have
these
to.
two are really important interventions that all hospitals should do. Now, when I have patients who I know myself, for them, the FNB and the dietary and the dietitians get straight away orders from me. Do not give them any carbs. Feed them just chicken, mutton, and maybe not mutton, but at least chicken, fish, and eggs, all cooked in butter. It's difficult to get ghee in the hospital, for cost effectiveness, but yeah, butter happens. And so that is something that happens. And then I have conversations with dietitians also, because they come and tell me, so dals are also rich in proteins again. So then we have another conversation over there. So I think hospitals actually need to start, at least, if nothing else, at least ban processed sugars and these fruit juices from all over the hospital. That's one thing for sure.
Anup and Shashi.
I'll be visiting you soon with lots of Kashmiri meat at your
I
hospital.
would love that.
Anup.
Yeah, welcome, Dr. Ankur. And you mentioned about RCT. I mean, you and me are involved in RCT, and it's of a different kind. I call it random community trial, which is far more authentic than funded RCTs. That is point number one. And point number two, you mentioned about diabetics being 28% in your internal study. Now, if you believe the American numbers, the unsick population is only 7%. And I won't be surprised if it is more in India, because all the dietary guidelines in India are just a copy paste of what comes from the West.
Yeah.
That is one. And two, I am here to complete the quartet of carnivores, right?
Oh, great.
For last 20 months, I mean, there was a question, I think, discussion, how can you eat meat daily?
Yeah.
Now, to make it more stringent, for last 20 months, I am eating the same preparation of meat without a break. Same, no change in even the recipe.
So it's a
It
bad
is-
diet. Carnivores are eccentric and they do this,
And-
on
and
purpose. It's a
yeah.
bad diet.
Yeah, let me add one thing to it so that people don't mistake that we are D-Life is promoting carnivore or something. I
Yeah.
started off as a basically dairy dependent vegetarian, right? Then I added eggs. Then someday I was told that if your God cannot cure your diabetes, better start doing something sensible. That is when I started eating chicken, then mutton, and then after listening to Ira's story, I started hogging literally red meat. and 10 eggs a day, protein shake, 500 grams of boneless meat. That's my schedule.
Yeah, I can't wait for Shashi to upgrade from eggs. Yeah.
So fine. Thank you. Anyway, I'm the only odd man out here, only vegetarian here. So thank you very much, Dr. Ankur. We'll have a more detailed discussion in our DLife podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Another Dhamaka podcast I will schedule very soon. Thank you.